No ID, no rank, no record. But 9 years ago, she vanished with national secrets worth millions. Cassidy Rowe had spent the last 9 years perfecting a skill most people overlook, disappearing in plain sight. And at Kline Ridge Medical Center in Red Bluff, Colorado, she was a master. Just the night janitor. That's all anyone saw. Quiet, predictable, invisible. From 10 p.m. to sunrise, 5 nights a week. She pushed the same mop down the same blue-tinted hallways, wiped the same blood off trauma beds, and restocked supplies that never stayed full for long. But if you watched her hands closely, too closely, you'd notice something off. They didn't move like hands meant for mops and bleach. They moved like they remembered something heavier and deadlier. At 11:47 p.m. that Tuesday, Cassidy was where she always was, moving silent through the ER bay. Her sneakers didn't squeak. Her old hospital cap shadowed most of her face. Her badge hung loose on her scrub top, the name printed on it long since unlisted by any government database. To the doctors and nurses, she was part of the floor familiar, functional, forgettable. And that was the plan. What they didn't know, what no one in Colorado knew, was that Cassidy Rowe used to answer to another name. Siren One, a Tier 1 combat medic, trained for deep field trauma surgery, silent insertions, and full extraction under fire. The kind of operator who could hold pressure on a severed artery with one hand while returning fire with the other. The one who never left anyone behind. Officially. She died in a helicopter crash 9 years ago, Koresh Province, under a botched operation codenamed Directive Emberfall. The op was so black, most of the Pentagon still acted like it never existed. Unofficially, she walked away from the wreckage, buried the name, and traded gunmetal dust for antiseptic fumes. It almost worked. In the rhythm of routine scrub, sanitize, reload, Cassidy found something close to peace. She studied quietly how the night shift took vitals, how Dr. Harper Lang stitched without pause. Her muscles still remembered. Once, instinct kicked in, and she mirrored a complex grip shift mid-suture without thinking. Lang had laughed. "You sure you've never been in medicine?" Cassidy just smiled. Grew up around it. But inside she still heard the screams, still saw the heat flare that took down Hale, still remembered the angle Corporal Drix fell. At 11:52, she stalked the last crash cart and paused. Something shifted. Not a sound, not a movement, just that quiet before impact, like pressure changing through a breach point. She glanced up. Nothing. A nurse updating charts, a paramedic wheeling in a coughing old man. But 3 blocks away, under floodlights behind the loading dock, a black SUV rolled to a stop. Inside 6 men, suppressed M7s, tactical comms. A grainy photo, not of a soldier, not of a terrorist, of a woman in scrubs, of a ghost they weren't supposed to find. Cassidy Rowe. Cassidy Rowe didn't see the men inside the black SUV, didn't see them check their rifles, review schematics of the emergency wing, or confirm the photo of their target. But she felt them, the way seasoned warfighters do before the first shot, before the first scream. She was loading fresh linens into her supply cart when the sensation returned. That slow-burning hum of danger. Not fear. Exactly. Something older, sharper. The same instinct that had yanked her behind a blast wall seconds before a mortar landed in Khazar. The same instinct that had saved her life more times than she could count. She froze. The corridor was quiet. Too quiet. The flickering hallway light. The way the guard hadn't passed by in 20 minutes. The subtle shift in the way air moved near the fire door. Something was coming, and in that instant. Cassidy Rowe, the janitor, with a quiet job and a borrowed name, became Siren One again. She moved like she was still invisible, but her mind had already flipped into threat mode. Time, position, assets, exit paths. She just reached Trauma Bay 3 when it happened. A voice, urgent and sharp. From the other side of the curtain, el disparo vino de un tejado. Entrada limpia. Velocidad alta. Cassidy's body tensed. She knew those words. Not just the Spanish, but the meaning behind them. Entry wound consistent with high-velocity rifle fire. Trajectory from elevation. Sniper fire. Not random. Not gang violence. Tactical. Deliberate. She moved closer to the curtain, through a narrow gap. She saw him, male, mid-40s, clothes torn, but military in cut. Tattoos on the forearm half hidden under dried blood. Not random ink. Insignia. Unit symbols. Covert. Recognizable only to someone who'd once operated where nothing was written down. His fingers were calloused the way gunmen's hands always were. But it was his voice that turned Cassidy cold. "They followed me here," the man whispered to Dr. Lang, clutching her wrist. "They're coming. For her." "For who?" Lang asked, frowning, but the man was fading fast, shock and sedative colliding. Cassidy didn't need the answer. She was the her, the sniper wound. The arrival time, the rooftop shooter. It wasn't coincidence. They weren't hunting him. He'd led them here. To her. She stepped into the storage closet and pulled open the base of her janitor's cart. Behind the bleach bottles and gloves, a sealed panel snapped free. Inside an old satellite phone. She hadn't touched it in 8 years, but her fingers moved without hesitation. Code input. Message sent. Siren One to Ghost Actual. Package exposed. Immediate extraction requested. 30 seconds later, Ghost Actual negative. Too hot. Do not move. Reinforcements en route. Hold position. She stared at the screen. If Tommy Martinez, her former Echo team partner, was saying it was too hot, then this wasn't a cleanup hit. This was an operation. She wiped the phone, crushed the SIM, and returned to her cart. Her breath slowed. Her pulse calmed. Fight or die mode. The hospital held nearly 300 people tonight. Staff, visitors, patients, some too young, some too fragile, all too unaware. Cassidy's job was no longer about sterilization. It was about survival. "Why are you asking about a medical transport?" Security's voice crackled in Cassidy's earpiece, more suspicious now. "Just humor me," she said. Calm. She couldn't explain more without cracking the identity she'd spent years building. A beat. Then another. Bob Harrison came back on his voice lower now. "Tango 1. That rig's not in our system. Plates match a stolen unit out of Iron Basin. 3 hours ago." Cassidy's jaw tightened. The soldier in Trauma 3 hadn't stumbled in. He'd been delivered used as bait, and now the wolves were inside the fence, dressed in the uniforms of trust. She moved, crossed to the nurse's station, catching Dr. Lang mid-chart. "Doctor, listen, don't ask. That ambulance team, they're not medics. Lock this floor down, now." Lang blinked. "Cass, what are you even—" "Because I've seen this twice, overseas. If we don't move now, people die." The lights cut out before Lang could respond. The hallway dimmed to hell red. Then came the sound. Click, click. Not medical gear, not panic. Weapons, sliding from shoulder slings, chambering rounds. The hunt had begun. Cassidy yanked Lang behind the desk just as the first burst of gunfire shattered the glass. People screamed, "Stay down! Don't move!" Her voice had changed. It wasn't a suggestion. Lang stared wide-eyed. The janitor who drank stale coffee beside her was gone. In her place stood something else, a professional, a predator, through the shattered doors. Cassidy saw them enter. 6 men, maybe more. Tactical black gear, comms, NV optics. They moved like a unit, precise and cold. This wasn't a robbery. This was an extraction. One approached tall, clean-shaven, rifle sweeping. He rounded the station. Cassidy moved. A shoulder slam drove the med cart into his legs. He staggered. She was on him. A strike to the wrist, rifle down, chokehold fast, brutal, silent. 10 seconds, then the floor. Lang gasped. "Jesus Christ." Cassidy pulled the comms from his vest, took the rifle. "I'm someone trying to keep you alive." The comms crackled. Target confirmed in building. Repeat. Lifeline is active. Her breath hitched. They knew her call sign. She dragged Lang toward the medbay storage room. How many people on this floor, she asked, already pulling mags from the downed operator's vest. 8 patients, 6 staff, Lang said, voice trembling but focused. Cassidy nodded. We're moving them. Quietly. What's the most secure location in this building? The surgical suite. 3rd floor. One way in. Secured doors. I've got access. You know the layout 6 years here. I know every stairwell, every freight shaft. Then follow my lead. In under 20 minutes. Cassidy led a silent evacuation through Kline Ridge's forgotten gut service corridors. Old vents, maintenance shafts, a gurney for the heart patient, nurses shielding others with trauma blankets. One teenager with a cast still fresh helping an unconscious man walk. Lang kept them calm. Cassidy kept them unseen. But as they neared the freight elevator, thump, thump, thump. Rotors. Cassidy froze. She lifted the comms she'd taken earlier. Overwatch in position. All exits covered. No one leaves until primary secured. Copy. Sweeping floors 1 through 5. Target is mobile but not yet contained. This wasn't a cleanup. It was a war. Someone had committed full-spectrum force helicopters, perimeter lockdown, sweep teams, all for one ghost. Her. As the elevator groaned upward, Cassidy made a decision she hadn't made in 8 years. She wasn't going to hide. She was going to fight. Doctor, she said quietly, once we're upstairs, I'll need your full trust. No questions. Lang looked at her, truly looked. Cassidy, whoever you were before, they came for you. Didn't they? Cassidy didn't answer. She just nodded. Once. Yes, Cassidy Rowe whispered as the elevator stopped on the surgical floor. And I'm going to make sure they regret it. As the doors opened, the janitor vanished, replaced by someone the world hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Lifeline. And tonight, the ones who came to bury her past were about to learn they'd dug the wrong grave. The surgical suite, once a sanctuary of precision and sterile calm, was now a fortress. Cassidy moved through it with complete control, securing reinforced doors, checking field of fire angles, setting fallback zones. Everyone stay calm, she said evenly. We're safe for now, but you'll need to follow every word I say. Dr. Avery Lang pulled her aside. Cassidy, I need the truth. They know your call sign. You're not just some maintenance worker with a mysterious past. Cassidy held her gaze, then nodded. My name is Cassidy Rowe. 8 years ago, I was a combat medic attached to Task Force Orion, Joint Operations under Strategic Command. My call sign was Lifeline. Lang's voice softened. But you died. Officially in a training accident. Her jaw tensed. Unofficially, I saw things. Black site missions, off-books ops that weren't supposed to exist. I kept evidence. Someone decided I was too dangerous to leave alive. Before Lang could speak, the intercom crackled. A voice smooth, low, surgical in its intent. Cassidy Rowe, this is Colonel Mason Creed. I know you can hear me. Cassidy froze. Her breath didn't. She knew that voice. The man who'd signed off the mission that burned her team. The architect of Operation Emberfall. Publicly marked a failure. Privately sabotage. Lucrative sabotage. You've been a thorn in my side long enough. Creed continued. You have something I need, and I've got something you care about. Innocent lives. Cassidy stepped toward the comms panel. Creed, I should have known you wouldn't have the spine to die with the team you sold out. Ah, there's the Lifeline I remember. Always moral. Always in the way. What do you want? The drives. The Emberfall files. The evidence you tucked away before that bird went down. Give me the location and I'll spare your civilians. Cassidy's stomach sank. The drives. The encrypted data she buried in a canyon locker, financial routes, op names, surveillance footage, a dead man's switch never meant to trigger. She looked to Lang, then lied stone cold. I don't have the files. Creed chuckled. Cass, don't insult both of us. Martinez told us everything. He held for 3 days, tough bastard, but everyone breaks eventually. Cassidy's throat tightened. Tommy, dead. 3 days ago. His last gift was you. She looked down just for a second. Martinez, her old spotter, the one man who still remembered the comm signal she used tonight. He must have been captured, interrogated, and still, he held on as long as he could. Lang saw the shift in Cassidy's face, something hardening beneath the pain. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was payback. My offer is simple, Creed said. Hand over the files, and your people walk. Refuse, and I turn that floor to ash. You have 10 minutes. The intercom went silent. Cassidy stared at the room. Lang, the elderly man in the corner, oxygen mask rising and falling, a teenage girl with her arm in a sling. Every innocent Creed was willing to sacrifice. Then she turned to the team. He thinks I'm bluffing, she said. She stepped to the surgical tray, lifted a scalpel, her hand steady, familiar, and for the first time, she let them all see who she truly was. Prepare the suite for casualties, she told Lang. What are you going to do? Lang asked. Cassidy tested the blade instinctively, expertly. I'm going to remind Colonel Creed why Lifeline was the last name his enemies ever heard. The countdown began the second the comms cut off. Cassidy Rowe didn't waste a heartbeat. In less than 10 minutes, armed men would breach the 3rd floor, and she'd be ready. She moved through the surgical suite like it was a battlefield because now it was tables flipped for cover, IV poles rigged into tripwire distractions, oxygen tanks placed for controlled blasts, every tool reimagined as defense. But this wasn't just strategy, it was a reckoning. Cassidy was no longer hiding. She was drawing the line. Dr. Lang, she called out. Keep the patients low and out of sight. Secure the back doors. And if they breach, don't wait for permission. Run. Lang nodded, less a doctor now, more a soldier by necessity. Cassidy slipped into the shadows of the corridor. AR-15 reclaimed from the downed gunman in hand. Her movement silent, fluid, like the old days before the betrayal. She reached a small observation window and spotted them 2 fire teams, moving up the stairwell with practiced lethality. They weren't bluffing. This was real. 6 minutes left. Cassidy clicked the stolen radio. Just once. A simple signal, one she hadn't used in 9 years. To anyone else. It was static. To one specific listener, it meant alive. Need eyes? No reply came. Not yet. Back in the suite. She returned just in time to reposition a surgical table to cover the entry point. Then, she heard it. Thump. A muffled noise from below, followed by another, and then radio chatter. Alpha Team. Status. We've got movement on the east stairwell. Wait 1 down, repeat. 1 operator down. Cassidy's pulse spiked. She wasn't the only ghost awake tonight. Another shot, then silence. Somewhere, someone was covering her flank. Someone good. Someone who still remembered the signal. 4 minutes. Creed's voice returned on the intercom. Clock's ticking. Lifeline. My men are eager. You want to play the hero, fine, but every second you stall costs lives. Cassidy stared at the speaker, then hit transmit. That's funny, she said. Calm. Because every second I stall, someone's picking off your men. Silence. Then rage. You won't make it out of here. Cassidy smirked. Maybe not, but neither will you. 2 minutes. Footsteps outside the surgical suite. Then the breach team's voice. Low and hard. Stack left. Flash in 3. Cassidy raised her rifle. 1 breath, 1 second. Flashbang through the door. But she'd already moved. The blast detonated harmlessly behind a flipped table. The breach team entered fast and met a flurry of improvised defense. Cassidy opened fire controlled, deliberate. 2 dropped instantly. 1 got close, too close. She pivoted, scalpel in hand, and with 1 precise slash. He was down. 30 seconds. The last operator hesitated, then crumpled as a sniper round punched clean through his vest from the corridor. Boom. Echoing silence. Cassidy didn't know who fired the shot. But someone out there, someone who still remembered the old signal, was watching her 6. Maybe not Martinez, but someone who hadn't forgotten what Lifeline stood for. Dr. Lang emerged, eyes wide. Was that Cassidy nodded? Overwatch, not from the government. From someone who still answered when ghosts called. She walked to the comms. One last transmission. To whoever's listening, Operation Emberfall is live. Files secured, Colonel Creed's gone rogue, and Lifeline is no longer in hiding. She looked to the staff, the patients, shaken but alive. And, for the first time in 9 years, she allowed herself to breathe.